First of all, welcome to Mid Wales. Put your hands up if you have never been to this glorious place before.
Shame.
And that is the magic of crystals. Even the depth of Wales, the heart of Wales, can attract such a lovely audience. So this is probably, in fact, I'm almost convinced it will be the largest concentration of crystal healers ever to have congregated in Mid Wales. in living and beyond memory. So.
I sat in front of my computer and I had a piece of White in my lap, and I was like, okay, come on, tell me your story. And you know, as most of you know, sort of when you ask questions, it depends on the particular time and place, but you know, if you ask certain questions, sometimes big experiences come in. So I was sat with this White in my lap, and the next thing I knew, I was rising out of my body and moving at the speed of light, and or the speed of inner light, out, and I was really aware that I was moving out of my body and actually eventually looking down on the planet. And there was this odd feeling at the same time. I thought, am I going? Because I didn't know what was going to happen, but I thought, I'm going. This isn't quite how I imagined going, and I'm not quite ready. I've only just started, and I'm going. And there was a part of me that sort of was all right with that at the same time, and at the same time not all right with it, because I was like, oh God, I've only just learned to be all right on this planet, and now I'm off. And you know, it had been a challenge for me to be incarnate, to be in a body, and to enjoy the earth plane. And there was this funny, odd feeling of like, oh damn it, you know, I've just sort of mastered this, and I'm off, and I don't want to. I've just learned to enjoy it. Anyway, off I went out into the cosmos, and I was very aware I was right out in the universe. And I'm sure many of you know, when you go out in the universe, it's a very expansive, quiet space where one can hear even planets moving and star systems moving. It's when you have those experiences, they're utterly humbling, and our sense of how small we are in the universe is just overwhelming. So I find myself out on the edge of the universe thinking I've died, or am I having an out-of-body experience? I'm not quite sure what's going on. And slowly coming towards me was this enormous turquoise light in the shape of a mandala. And this mandala was coming towards me, and I felt utterly safe. I didn't feel threatened by it in any way, shape or form. I was aware that this light and sound was coming towards me. And I mean, what you do in those situations, of course, you go into it. I mean, it was like this, I couldn't resist. And I just found myself going into this light. And the only thing I can describe it is a sense of dissolving and a sense of disappearing. How long I was there, I don't know. It was an interesting day because there was nobody in the house and there was nobody in the office apart from me. So I had no way of timing how long all this took. So it could have been a few seconds, it could have been a few hours, I really don't know. And I was dissolved in this light, and the next moment or the next hour, I'm not quite sure in our time, I found myself out, sort of a bit like being pushed out of this light, and slowly coming back down to earth into my body.
There is a tribe, a whole wide world tribe of crystal-loving, peace-seeking healers and sensitives out there. And we are not isolated individuals. And I want you to remember that. If you feel like you're isolated, you are not. There's lots of us. We're part of a big movement that's gathering momentum. The new earth is coming, the new age is unfolding, and there will be more and more of us waking up and more people connecting together. Okay. And I want you to consider how far your soul has already journeyed. And I don't mean from Yorkshire or Scotland or Cornwall. How far your soul has journeyed to be here at this time and to be in tune with the crystal kingdom. So a lot of you may have had that kind of sudden instinctive feeling of connecting to the crystals and been quite surprised by it. And I would say to you, if it was a surprise, you are probably remembering the crystalline energies from other lifetimes, when the crystals did share secrets with you, when you did do healing with them. A lot of people in this room have worked with crystals before this life. And the way I see the crystals as so valuable to us in this whole process is they hold us safe and steady. And I called my company Touchstones Therapies when I started it up, and now it's Touchstone School of Crystal Therapy, because I see the crystals as touchstones. They're our rock to hold on to. They hold us steady. They hold us true to our purpose. They keep bringing us back on track when our ego minds try to wander off. They keep bringing us back to our centre. And I think they're beautiful for that. And if you do remember ancient times, just checking the time, if you do remember ancient lifetimes, you may contact times when you were a healer, if you do some past life work. And you may uncover ways you were working with crystals then that can feed into the way that you're doing your healing with crystals now. And it's really a lot of what's coming through us now is old stuff. It's good stuff, and it seems like new stuff, but it's not. It's old stuff. It's similar to what Michael was saying this morning about once upon a time the temples were real and solid. They are real, but they're not earthly anymore. They're not in three-dimensional earthly form. And a lot of what we're remembering seems perhaps slightly like fantasy, but I think it was real on this planet at one time. And I do think in ancient times the healer was respected and the healer was valued, and the gift of healing was one that was prized and nurtured. And the priests and the priestesses did work with the energies of the sun and the moon, and they were important, and the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And in those times there was a harmony maintained. And then I really do believe that there was a great darkness that fell upon the earth. I know that sounds biblical, but I believe that is true. The fear came down on the earth and pervaded the earth, that energy of fear. And the divine feminine was demonized. And those healers who worked with her, those priestesses who served the goddess, were forced underground to work in secret. And those who did healing risked accusation and risked blame for whatever misfortune befell the populace. And in a climate of fear and superstition, some of you will have experienced oppression, and some of you will have experienced persecution and cruelty. And so maybe in those times, if you did, you may have made a decision at a deep soul level, at a level you're not conscious of, to hide your light very carefully in future lifetimes so you could stay safe and it didn't happen again. We can't stay hidden anymore. That's not an option. So in those fear-ridden times, possessing magical stones could actually be a real mortal danger for you. Perhaps you were still secretly drawn to your stones, but you couldn't share that love of the crystal world, and you kept it quiet. And maybe you switched off your skills and your talents so completely and absolutely for self-preservation that you imagine this is the only time when you've ever been a healer. And for most of you, that's simply not the case. Your true self has been there all along, hidden, covered up with veils like that lamp, just waiting for you to rediscover your light. and the crystals have waited patiently for you to remember and work with them again.
There's nothing more British than Preseli bluestone. And so there were three other questions that seem to be relevant. Where is the heart of Britain? Where are the roots of Britain? Who are the guardians of Britain? Now, when we say Britain, I'm conceiving it as the British Isles and the kingdom that used to be called Prydain, which is where we get Britain from. So the Welsh name, the Celtic name for the British Isles, Prydain. Good. So, Preseli bluestone was a local phenomenon thing to West Wales until an archaeologist in the 1920s recognised that some of the stones in the centre of Stonehenge, the smaller stones that were still remaining in the centre of Stonehenge, and this is a sort of a artist's reconstruction of one phase of the end of Stonehenge, were probably from the Preseli Hills in West Wales, in Pembrokeshire. Before that, archaeologists aren't really good at anything else other than archaeology, so they like the shapes of stones, but they don't know what stones are. And actually, stones are very difficult to identify. They need chemical analysis and whatever. But it was shown by chemical analysis that the stones from the centre of Stonehenge do originate from the Preseli Hills in West Wales.
The first testings that proved this were done in 1990, and they showed that I think it was stones numbers 1, 4 and 8 of the centre were from a particular outcrop in Preseli called Carmenin. Some recent work last year at a different site on the north of the Mynydd Preseli showed that stones, I think it was sort of 5, 9 and 10 or something, came from a different outcrop. Because each outcrop is so chemically unique, they could tell which stones came from where. So it's interesting that they have sort of slowly catching up with this.
Now, the thing about Stonehenge is that it's not, it gets more and more complicated the more anybody starts looking at it. These days with radio, ground piercing radar and stuff like that, they're discovering that it wasn't sitting by itself in the middle of nowhere, it was part of a huge complex, as most Neolithic complexes in the whole of the British Isles were. The number of stone types of stone found at Stonehenge is about 30. So the stones that are called bluestone are not all geologically identical, but they are from the same, like Sue says, from the same area and from the same outcrops. It's just a different. A geologist would call one of the stones a dolerite, and the one that looks pretty much exactly the same a rhyolite, and another one would be something else and something else. But basically the three main types of stone at Stonehenge these days are the Sarsen ring of hard sandstone, which is local 30 miles away.
And apparently it was pink when it was
it's
newly
pink when
cut.
it's freshly cut. Bright pink, it is lovely. The smaller stones, which are about human size dolerites or bluestones, are a mixture of rhyolites and spotted, unspotted dolerite and other sorts of things. But basically they are all the same sort of rock. All the bluestones are mid-level volcanic extrusions. So they have a crystal structure that is less fine than basalt, which crystallises quite close to the surface, so it has very small crystals. Granite, which solidifies deep in the earth, so it has large crystals between them. are the dolerites and other stones of that sort of ilk, which are sort of, they have a crystal structure which is quite large, but they don't form very large crystals. This makes the working and the properties of prosaic bluestone and its relations quite problematic, because it is quite difficult to work, because the crystal structures, the compounds and minerals that make up the rock are different hardnesses and different shapes, so it makes it quite a difficult stone to work.
And so I want to explain a little bit about crystals and psychic development. And so I had to learn to master my own psychic abilities. And I did that by expanding myself in awareness. And by expanding myself in awareness, I understood more about my shadow and more about my place in the universe and how energies around me affected me, because they affect you very differently, okay? And so I could say, yeah, you know what, I'll teach you psychic development, I'll teach you my way, you know, and this is how I see it, and this is what, and it wouldn't be the same. You really have to do it yourself. You know, we all see, you know, so I'm sure you're all aware that the clairs, and so I just call them the clairs, clairvoyance. You know, you're seeing, some people see symbols, and so whatever they see is a symbolic representation. Other people, they see, you know, beings, you know, and it's as if that being was almost communicating with them. And again, that hints towards more the mediumship side of the psychic abilities, whereas the symbols tend to mean it's much more of you're picking up on the energy that's there, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so, and then, you know, the other clair is the clairaudient. And you know, I've only ever heard a physical voice outside of me once, but I'm telling you now, I'm not going to swear. Okay? But what I do hear is voices in my own head. And I've seen a psychiatrist. I did his head in. No, I'm joking. So, you know, and they appear as my own thoughts, okay? And so it's like my own thoughts, but I get a sense that they're just not me. Okay, they're just not me. It's like, hey, that's not me. I've got someone coming through here that's channeling. You know, and quite often what my students say is my voice changes. And so I do channeling work where I bring through higher dimensional beings. So that's the hearing, and then the clairsentience is the clear feeling. And so, you know, all healers, come on, you're all clairsentient, and so you all feel people's emotions. You know, when someone comes and they've got a bad stomach, it's like, have you got a bad stomach? You know, have you hurt your shoulder? And you're having that empathic response in your own body. And so we feel things in our own body, you know, or sometimes we feel them emotionally in our electromagnetic field around us, which is like a nerve system in itself, in the ethers, is picking up on other people's stuff. And then there's claircognizance, and I always consider claircognizance to be the highest form of higher senses. And I'm sure you all have it as well, because you all have that. These are natural abilities, and we all know that what's happened is we've had them conditioned out of us. And claircognizance means a clear knowing. And you know, you just know stuff. I talk to my crystals. How many of you talk to your crystals? Please talk to your crystals. Because they hear you anyway. Seriously. How do we know? Most people have, you know, in ancient times, we would talk to trees, and we would talk to animals, and we would talk to crystals, and we're remembering how to do this now, okay? And that's because of the times that we have found ourselves in. So people are naturally having these psychic experiences. But actually, you know, when I work with crystals, the very first thing I do is I say, thank you. Thank you for being here. Because when you send gratitude to a crystal, if I said gratitude to you, so I say thank you, what happens is that person releases a thank you of energy back. They open their heart. It's about making compatibility. It's actually called manners as well. You know, it's not, you don't get a crystal and go, oi, do that. personally, if someone said that to me, I wouldn't be very happy. But on a serious note, when you send gratitude to your crystals, you are opening up the stream of communication consciousness, okay? And then when you work with your crystal, you have to imagine, what would a crystal say to you? As you're sat there and you've said thank you, and you say, what do you want to do? What would it say to you? You know, and when it gives you an answer, whether it's auditory, visual, or kinesthetic, or a thought, take it. Don't allow your logic. Your logic's like a donkey, okay? and so who's having a race here? There's summer that the donkey and the horse want, and your intuition's really, really fast, and it's bam, I know what to do, okay? And the donkey is like, yeah, but wait for me, no, you better not do that, and that sounds like rubbish, and blah, 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 go and get a book and see what it says, and go and ask a friend, and, you know, phone a friend or whatever. That's what you need to do. And really sort of, you know, so we've got to learn to trust ourselves.